Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for another session of Ljubljana Talks here at IMEX 2023. Gorazd from Toleranza Marketing, and of course our guest, Shawn Sawyer from Cacique International. Shawn, thank you very much for taking your time to be with us.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me.
Great. And we're going to be discussing, of course, our industry, how you see it, what we're doing, and of course through the prism that you are, an expert on event design, weddings, and of course the sea. It's a very big topic. It's a very big industry, the cruising industry as such. So we would love to know how do you see the cruising industry coming back after COVID, and of course, how do you see it represented here at IMEX 23?
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. Yes, the sea is a very large part of our daily life, as everybody knows. Cruising, cruise ships, yachts, boats is very much a part of all of that. Specifically, our involvement is going to be involved with the cruise ships, cruise line industry, and pointing out more so than ever that it's great to do meetings and incentives and events at sea. Okay, I think for many years, everybody considered cruising as a vacation, and for individuals or families or very small groups. But the elevation of that experience to the MICE market has just been incredible. The cruise ships, obviously, before what we've just been through, everybody knows what we've been through, so we're not going to spend too much time on that, was a very robust, growing industry, more so than ever. Not only from the individual FIT travel, but groups, events, charters, meetings at sea was really, really, really becoming quite a forefront industry for them. Fast forward a couple of years, and now more than ever, everybody wants to get back out onto the ocean.
Wow.
It's an obvious thing. Everybody wants to be outdoors, so getting outdoors and on the ocean is a big priority nowadays.
I mean, we've seen SITE being strongly connected, so the Association for Incentive Travel Excellence being connected with, of course, incentives on cruises. And as you're saying, you're trying to change the perception of cruises, more as a leisurely product. But there's, of course, the question about how do you work with changing the perception about sustainability and cruising, which I think is just as big as a topic at the time.
So I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm not going to say a lot of time. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, because I think a lot of people years ago perceived cruising as an individual. Where are we going on vacation this year with the family? Well, we're going to the Caribbean, or we're going to the Mediterranean. It was the normal thing. But, within the last, I'm going to say 7 to 10 years or so, the cruise lines and the industry has started to change that cruise ships are now very much a viable option, just like a hotel. I mean, cruise ships are really hotels at sea, but it's changing that perception that it's not only for vacations or pleasure. You can do meetings and business and incentives at sea. It's just getting people to think out of the box in that regard. The cruise lines are doing a great job with changing that mindset. SITE, a lot of the industry associations are now pointing people into that direction, that you don't only have to think about a hotel to do a meeting or an incentive. Keeping in mind that, hotels have been around for a very, very, very long time. So the idea of people doing meetings and events in a hotel, they've had a little bit more time to market and present that. Cruise lines is very, 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 very quickly catching up. And people are now realizing, hey, I can actually do meetings and incentives on board. They're also looking at not so much the cruise ship, but using it as a destination. So if you're going on a charter, it's a charter in the Mediterranean, you're saying, okay, well, the benefits of that is I get to go to additional places during that experience, as opposed to a hotel where you're buying out a hotel, you're checking in, you're staying there, and then you're leaving. So that's become very, very, very enticing and very exciting to clients nowadays, because when you couple the sort of different country experience with elevating the experience on board to a meetings or a mice market level, it's a win-win situation.
I'm thinking now about the stage technology built into the cruise ships. This is amazing technology, actually. You cannot find something like that in many, many convention centers in Europe, for example, also in the States. But if I ask you simply, what are the greatest advantages of organizing events at sea, and of course drawbacks of organizing, what would you say? Yeah.
So before we started to really specialize in meetings and events at sea, we took about a year and a half to understand and learn the industry, because it's a little bit different than just doing a meeting or an event in a hotel, because there you just reverse the truck to the convention center or the ballroom and you unload it. It's different on cruise ships, because it's not, you don't sort of like take the boxes up the gangway. It's a whole process that you have to go through. A lot of planning. Different ports around the world have different rules and regulations. So you have to learn and understand that whilst it's flexible, it's very tedious. One of the biggest drawbacks is when you're out at sea and you forget the staple gun, what do? So
improvise.
you improvise, yes, but you know, for us doing this, we have to really think about what we're doing, planning, discussions, meetings, brainstorming, list, checks and balances constantly over and over and over again, because when you're out in the middle of the ocean and the client is expecting a meeting with audiovisual and technology and everything, you can't say, oh, we forgot that, because you can't go and get it. So for us, it's been interesting because it's been very challenging, because it really does force you to think about it and plan and make sure that you've ticked all the boxes and you've got all the tape and the drop cords and everything. One of the biggest advantages is that you are on a sort of floating city. Now, there are different size ships. There is a different type of ship or experience for every person out there, but they are providing you a backdrop that's essentially a lot newer than what most people are used to. Adding in the fact that you get to go to different ports and different cities every day, you get to encompass those cities into the program. So it's not like going to a hotel, and again, hotels are great, and destinations with hotels are fantastic.
No discrimination.
No discrimination whatsoever. But when you go to a hotel in a city or a country, you're going to adapt to that city in that particular country. Whereas on a cruise ship, you've got a lot of different pieces or different parts of the recipe that you get to build with.
Really interesting. And how we are keeping with the trends in Europe? Are we following what is going on in the States, or what is your idea about it?
So the interesting thing is for us, we've predominantly found that our client base has been more the North American client base that are doing this sort of experience. They are doing it in Europe. They are doing it in Asia and the Caribbean and Alaska and everywhere. So at this moment in time, we've not really worked with a specific European client doing this, but I can only imagine that if it's being done in North America, it's being done in Europe as well.
So we all know that sustainability is a big thing, and
yes,
we know that there are certain certain elements of the cruising industry which have been criticized as unsustainable, fuel the economic aspects, where the companies are registered, all this. How do you mitigate or how do you resolve issues that perhaps an organizer coming to you would say, what about this or that? How do you resolve that? Who do you work with?
So that's a good question, actually. So the cruise ships have obviously for many, many, many years realized that they have been under the spotlight for many things. And I think it's because they are they're so highly regulated, and in many cases more regulated than hotels are. So I think obviously everybody's watching. So they have done an incredible job, as is with everybody, in really putting mechanisms and mechanics in place to start to mitigate a lot of those issues. Cruise ships are making carbon footprints and being carbon neutral a top priority moving forward. And I think clients are also driving that, making sure that they understand this is very important to us, which the cruise lines completely understand, and are making a very, very, very important step when it comes to that. So for us, working with cruise lines and clients, it's about all of us sitting around a table, learning about each other's desires, learning exactly more about what the cruise lines are doing, to make sure that there's a clear understanding that from a client's perspective, they require this. Yeah. This is where we need to be.
So you see this as a requirement, as a trend?
100%. Yeah. 100%. And the cruise lines, like I say, have worked very hard for many, many years at doing this. They have just been under the microscope for obvious reasons, more so than ever. But now they're using that as an advantage to really showcase to the world, we hear you, and we're working very hard.
So going forward, what do you see is like the big trend in the industry and in the cruising offer that you think is the new advantage for the meetings organizers? Because there is this, it's as big as the ocean in a way.
Correct. Yeah? So the biggest next steps are to create an easier level of understanding for the organizers and meeting planners that cruising can be for everybody. And I say that from a mice market perspective. Changing that mindset, not only that it's just rum punches and vacations, it's providing you a really, really formidable backdrop for your program and for your next incentive. Letting them know that there's also a different type of cruise ship for everybody. A lot of people, nowadays they see huge cruise ships on TV commercials, which to them looks like a lot, from number of people to the expense. But there's more to cruising than just what you see only on TV. There's a platform, as we say, for everybody. So what we want to do moving forward is let them know, clients and organizers, that it's easy to do it. There's a hotel contract, there's a cruise ship contract. You don't go to a hotel and put on a final night banquet or an awards gala in a ballroom with just white tablecloths and a candle. You spend money on production in hotels. Well, let's spend money on production on cruise ships. It's sort of opening that door that it can happen. And it's happening. It's just, like I said earlier on as we were talking, hotels have had a few more years doing this than cruise ships do. Cruise ships nowadays are actually building conference centers for meetings and have meeting space on board. So that's another new door that has now started to open, because previously cruise ships didn't do that. But cruise lines understand that it is important to have that platform, that people do want to have big meetings, and you don't necessarily want to have them around the pool deck. You want to have them in a proper facility where you feel like your meeting is as important in a hotel ballroom as it is there. So it's exciting right now because we're changing the narrative, so to speak, and opening people's eyes that it does take a little bit more planning. There's a little bit more technical involvement, but it can be done.
Do you have a lot of competitors on the market, or you are...
How do I answer that?
I mean,
you know, at
it's
the
a
end,
direct question. So
yeah, no. We've really sort of focused on the speciality of what this means. You know, it's before I started to do the 18 months, year and a half of understanding the cruise line industry in the MICE market field, I thought, you know, it was easy. You just take boxes up the gangway and you just put them on board and that's it. It's not. So it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of, you don't have big corridors. You don't have forklifts that move things around. It's very tedious to move around on ships. So a lot of people don't, I think that they feel that it's probably a little bit tougher than what they want to deal with. We love that challenge. We've always been a company that wants to pioneer or break the glass ceiling and figure it out type thing. So for us, we love the challenge. I don't think it's for everybody, but I'm always in favor of competition because competition is always a good thing.
And where would you take someone to feel the vibe of the meeting at sea? Which port is number one? At sea, of course, but do you have any favorite place to recommend to us?
I don't.
You don't?
There's, you know, the ocean is a beautiful place. Each country is very special in its own way. You know, I could sit here and I could speak about, you know, a meeting or an incentive trip in Alaska.
Yeah.
It's stunning. You know, it's beautiful, untouched, natural beauty.
Yeah.
But on the same token, you know, when you're in the Mediterranean and you wake up in the morning and you're at a beautiful port like Civitavecchia and you're cruising the Amalfi Coast, that's beautiful as well. So it's very difficult to say which one is the best. I think it boils down to creating that magical moment on board, coupled with the beauty of the environment that you're in, that at the end of the day, the guest walks away with something very special that says, that was amazing.
I think the cruising concept of, you know, bringing the meetings industry onto cruise ships is a very interesting one. And of course, it touches also on the destinations which now have to have, or being a river cruise or a sea cruise. And it brings in, you know, there's destinations are different, have different regulation, have different expectations, have limitations. We know that there are cities that have, you know, limited cruise ships, which of course, you know, influences of what you can offer, what kind of ships are in which season, in which destinations, all that. But I have a question for you. How do you deal with, let's say, if your client has a specific supplier they want to have from a country A, they put them on, you know, they want that supplier to do a show or a production or whatever, and you end up in a different country. How is this resolved? Would this be an issue or a problem or something?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, we welcome that sort of thing. I mean, for us, you know, we really want for the guest, obviously working with the client, to walk away with something very special. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. You want to make sure that the company is getting their return on the investment as well. And for that to happen, you need that moment to take place. And if for whatever reason it involves the ship, the destination, a show, or something very specific to a location, we're all in favor for it. Because at the end of the day, the clients are going to walk away saying, that was an incredible experience.
Okay.
As opposed to the client walking away saying, okay, well, that was nice because I enjoyed the pool party. For us, we want the client to walk away saying, you don't have to say something specific that happened. You just want them to look at the entire recipe that we put together to make that cake the cake to be all-encompassing, incredible. So we have no problem at all with working with a client in a specific destination that wants a specific show, or they are friends with somebody and they would like to bring them on board to do this. Absolutely. And we would end up working with them to elevate that as well, because that is going to be one of those moments along the experience that the client will walk away with saying.
And there's another thing that we as destinations would encounter often, and DMCs encounter, and there's a question that because I was talking with some colleagues about us having this conversation today, and a very interesting question popped up, and that is, how do you deal with, because corporates are insured, they have insurances. Now, if you go out to the international waters, what kind of insurance does apply in that case?
So, also a very interesting question. So, for us, we're utilizing the same concept because obviously Cacique has a destination management company division. We're using the exact same sort of level of discussions and contracting with insurance. There's really no difference. I mean, at the end of the day, the cruise line has the insurance. You and the client, meaning Events Design at Sea and the client, have a contract that not only indemnifies us, but we're also carrying our own insurances as well. When we are bringing to use your concept as an example, a show on board, it's no different than a hotel. We would do the exact same sort of contract negotiation with regards to insurance. It's, again, because that show is happening on a cruise ship, it's no different than if that show was happening in a hotel. So we try to mitigate a lot of that because we don't want for the client to think, well, you know, if I'm in, I don't know, Monaco, and there's a really great show, and they start to think, well, I don't know if I want to do that because I think it's going to be this. We try to change that mindset at the beginning. So we're in Monaco, we're there for the night. Why don't we bring something from Monaco on board as well? So we mitigate a lot of that, and we welcome the fact to bring the destination into the experience because truly that's what the client's looking for.
Oh, very interesting discussion, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned a lot today. This is our podcast about, actually, to learn something new.
Good.
And I love it. So if the budget is unlimited, what kind of event you want to host?
Oh boy. So I have to think about that one a little bit because I think that, you know, we've done charters for clients where it's been super extravagant, meaning they are they've asked us to remove parts of the grand ballroom and recreate things and reconstruct things, and there was kind of an endless budget, and it was beautiful and it was wonderful. At the end of the day, it was very special because the client really wanted their total number of group to fit in one space for one event, but the grand dining room didn't allow that on a normal setup. So we had to change things to allow that. So that was really special to allow everybody to be together. So that was a lot of fun. But I have to say, you know, we've had a group, which is different from a charter, where they had taken over just a lovely restaurant. And rather than it being the restaurant experience, what we did was redesigned the experience for them for one night. So when they went in there before and they had dinner and it was great, but for the night of the event, when they went in, it was like, oh, this is different. So for us, yes, unlimited budget is great, but all we want to focus in on is touching that spiritual nerve that no matter if it's big or small, it makes the client or the guest feel like, okay, this was special. The client really thought about me tonight by making this special for me and not just putting me in a location. But if I did have an endless budget, I would love to take one of the bigger cruise ships, and completely redesign a pool deck to create a very, very, very sort of fantasy, fun world coupled with what the cruise ship has built already, and just take it up a few notches.
I'm already dreaming about it, you know. So yeah. So thanks a lot. But we finish usually with short questions, fire questions.
Sure.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Okay. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Wine. Okay, Jan. The last one is yours.
I thought you were going to say rum. One of my favorite rums is Cacique.
Been there and done that.
And I will ask you, river or sea?
Sea.
Sea. Okay.
You can't beat the ocean. There's nothing, well, with all due respect to river, fans, there's something about being in the ocean, not seeing any land, and just floating.
I think
Close your eyes and just think about that for 2 seconds.
That's a beautiful way how to end this edition of Ljubljana Talks, I think. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawn, for coming. And
it's a pleasure.
You know, we might continue this debate.
Please, call anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.